Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Peter Leong. I'm an ex-Singaporean currently living out of Auckland in New Zealand. I've always been intrigued by things relating to the end of the world, and because I'm a Christian, I've been studying the word of Jesus. There are different ways of actually coming to an idea about when it's going to happen. One of them relate to seeing the mark of the beast, or 666 being brought into fruition. Now, this is the first of 5 short videos that I'm making relating to the mark of the beast, and I've been a student in studying the mark since the 1980s. Now, the only verse in the Bible that mentions the mark is found in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18. He causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. And that's the name of the beast, or the number of its name. I'll just stop here just for a short while to reflect on that. Basically, everyone needs the mark if he or she wants to buy or sell. Life cannot be normal without that. If you don't have that, you cannot carry on as per what you want to have normalcy in life. You need the mark. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who is understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it's the number of man, and his number is 666. Now, 2 key words here to mention. The words are wisdom and understanding. So in other words, we need to have a little bit of background or knowledge to it, and I'm about to give it to you here if you have not already heard it before. I started my journey on eschatology, or the second coming of Christ, when I read a book written by Mary Stuart Raff, When Your Money Fails. And that was in the early 80s. And then a little bit later, I read her second book called The New Money System. Now, many people in our generation think that the mark will take place very soon. I agree, although I do not foresee it taking place maybe in the next 20 years. I potentially see it coming into effect maybe 30 years and more, really. And I'll explain to you why. Now, there are 2 sets of factors that need to come in order for the mark to take place. The first one is what I've termed technological factors, and the second set consists of human factors. You realize that if the 2 sets don't come in, the mark cannot become reality. It is not so simple to bring about the mark. Now, one of the easiest things to look at is how our government is dealing with in terms of addressing the issue of COVID-19. Now, it is a logistical and technological challenge to implement a vaccine across the globe. In the first place, they have to make the vaccine. And then they have to convince people in every country that it is okay to be vaccinated. And finally, they have to roll out the whole vaccination program, not across one country, but across the whole wide world with billions of people. So if you think in terms of COVID-19, just imagine what it means in terms of the mark. First, they have to make a mark. Today, I'm only going to talk about the first element, that of making the mark, that of having a identifier. It is one of the first of 5 sub-factors relating to technology that we are addressing today and in the next presentation. Early Christians found the number 666 in the names of many of their persecutors, among whom was Nero, whose Hebrew name added up to 666. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan was considered a good candidate because his middle name happened to be Wilson. So if we have 6 letters for his first name Ronald, 6 for his middle name Wilson, and finally 6 for his last name Reagan, it does spell out to us that, hey man, Ronald Reagan is probably the Antichrist. But we know he's a Christian president. He was a Christian president. The second person that they suspected at about the same point in time was Gorbachev, Ronald Reagan's equivalent of the Soviet Union, because he just happened to have a birthmark above or on his forehead. So people thought that, he'd probably be the Antichrist. But we know over time that he's not. From my study, the first technological factor, which is what I term as an identifier, which is a critical element, actually came around about 50 years ago, and it was the creation of what we can term right now as the Universal Product Code, or the UPC. Now, the UPC is a very critical element. Dr. Rath, whom we have spoken before, was perhaps the first person to recognize that the UPC is was potentially the mark of the number of the beast. UPC is currently being used to identify all supermarket products. You go to the supermarket and you pick up a bottle of Coke or something, and you find barcode system just like this at the back of it. Now, all you need to do is just to go around your home and pick up a chocolate bar, a can of drinks, or a pack of chips, and you just turn it around and you'll see this ubiquitous barcode behind this packaging. And each one of them, each product is represented by one barcode. I've since been following this system, obviously for good reasons. And about 20 years ago, I was introduced, or I was shown a little bit more by a friend of mine who was selling a barcode scanning system. Now he explained to me that the width of each bar actually represents a number. And there are two sets of numbers. Firstly, there's the left numerical set, and then there is the right numerical set. The left and the right numerical set uses different width to represent the number. And then there are actually three bars, one on the extreme left, one in the middle, and one on the extreme right. They're of equal width, but doesn't really have a number. They're actually called guard bars. Okay? And to be a bit more precise, if you look at this, it gives you a bit of a better idea. But if you look at the number 6 in the right numerical set, you realize that the width of it is really the same width as these guard bars, effectively making 666 hidden within the UPC barcode system. So the system is already in place and has been there for quite some time. Of course, in recent time, China has introduced another system called the QR code, and it's catching up in popularity. COVID-19 uses that for people to scan before they go into the supermarket or they go to the shop. But it is my belief that eventually one of these systems will be responsible for a global identifier. Remember this thing called the identifier, which will be used to identify every human that's on Earth. And I'll bet with you that it will be the UPC system that we use, and not so much about the QR system. But time will tell. So why is the UPC so important? Because the first thing for the mark to exist is the ability to create an identifier, okay, that we can put on every citizen. It is not yet a global identifier, but I'll walk you through in the next presentation that it is actually coming, and coming quite quickly. We'll be examining other factors under the technological factors in our next module. Please feel free to forward this presentation to your non-Christian friends or your Christian friends if you want to share this information. You might help them to come to know our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, the other thing about it is if you want to support me financially, you can go to this website, patreon.com /hearhim/. Or if you want to communicate with me and ask me a few questions here and there, please feel free to email me at monkeypeach.peter@gmail.com. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.